Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is Crafting the Perfect Employee Value Proposition, the key to attracting and retaining top talent. It's a special industry update with Jamie Campbell, Managing Director of Diamond Consultants Executive Search Group. I'm Louis Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for Financial Advisors.
At Diamond Consultants, our mission is to help advisors live their best business life. We want every elite advisor to find exactly the right place for their business and their clients to thrive, whether it's at a wirehouse, a regional, boutique, or independent firm. As the industry's leading recruiters and consultants, we've transitioned more than $250 billion in assets under management in the past decade, and each year, 25% of transitioning advisors who manage $1 billion or more are our clients. If you'd like to talk, please feel free to give us a call at 908-879-1002. Are you a financial advisor who's curious about whether you're in the best place to serve clients, or if there might be a better way to optimize your business for the future? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a new book that serves as a self-guided journey, walking you through the key steps that Diamond Consultants takes with our advisor clients, whether considering change or not. Visit diamond-consultants.com/thebook to learn more.
It should come as no surprise that competition for top talent has become tougher than ever. That means firms need to be on their game when it comes to attracting, hiring, and retaining key team members. So where do you start? Studies have found that communicating and demonstrating a clear employer value proposition, or EVP, is one of the single most important factors in attracting and retaining talent. For example, one study by CareerArc indicated that 69% of candidates would decline a job offer from a company with a negative employer brand, even if they were unemployed. A Gallup poll indicated that employees who understand and connect with their company's mission and values are 67% more engaged. And a Gartner study found that some 65% of candidates have reporting dropping out of a hiring process due to an unattractive EVP. Likewise, a well-defined EVP can increase new hire commitment by up to 29% and potentially reduce annual employee turnover by nearly 70%. So what exactly is an employer value proposition, and how can you create one that's compelling as well as something your firm can live up to? Jamie Campbell from our new executive search group joins me to break it all down. There's lots to discuss, so let's get to it. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today and making your podcast debut experience.
Thanks a lot, Louis. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
So real quick, just for our audience, a really exciting update on the Diamond Consultant side is we now are fully in the market as a retained executive search partner for RIAs, independent firms, and wealth managers alike. I won't bore you with the details. You can go on our website for that. But the real reason that we decided to do this was we've seen a massive gap in the industry where firms of all shapes and sizes are looking to scale up, to add capacity, and really take their firm to the next level. But talent is oftentimes a gap in getting there. So whether it's firms who are breaking away from a wirehouse or a major firm and are now thinking about building the firm for the next generation, those are perfect clients for us. So different from our legacy business or Diamond Consultants 1.0, we will still work with firms to find advisors, but it will be folks without a book of business. And we'll work really in any capacity to fill talent within a firm, whether it's C-suite, investment professionals, more family office professionals, director of operations type roles, really any sort of talent need. So we're really excited to launch this and to have Jamie on board with us. And enough about us. Let's get into something engaging and educational that our audience can take away and make their firms and their teams better. So Jamie, let's dive right into this topic of employer value proposition. So I know there's a number of different components that make up an ideal EVP. Do you want to take us through some of them?
Absolutely. And excited to talk about why the EVP makes such a difference when going out to find talent, engage talent, but then also keep that talent within the organization and the firm. And so it's made up of a number of different areas, which I know we can discuss, but it basically covers a variety of different areas to include brand, your organizational reputation within the marketplace, the basics of compensation and benefits, which many firms can get very unique, I think, through uniquely. Work life balance, very, very meaningful to a number of individuals, and even more so as the new generations launch their careers and move into the workforce. Employee recognition and rewards. How do you identify and reward employees for all of the efforts that they put forth, and recognize those publicly and celebrate them? Career development opportunities. This is a huge one in my opinion. As firms bring in new talent to the firm, is there a place for them to grow and develop within the firm and the organization? Very, very important. Work culture and environment, going back to the impact of brand, but how does it feel going to work every day? The people that you're working with, does it make you excited? Does it make you feel safe? And the safe piece goes to the last one, job stability and security. Do they feel this is somewhere that they can grow, develop, and feel safe, that they can be there for the long term?
Yeah, I think that's very well said. And just a couple of reactions to it. I think the work life balance component is even more important today than ever before, with the shift and then the shift back from remote to hybrid remote work and many offices mandating a full return to office. So if your firm is one that allows or highlights remote work or flexibility with working from home, it could definitely be a difference maker. And especially as the industry is overwhelmingly male, we found through our work that oftentimes it's females that value and covet a more flexible work arrangement. So if your firm is eager, as you should be, to hire top performing females, that could be a differentiator versus other firms in the market. One other question I'll have for you, Jamie, is you went through the 8 or so components of an EVP, but how important do you think is, we'll call it like the overall value proposition of a firm? So, not the employee facing one, but more so how a firm goes to market to attract new clients and stand out versus their competition. Do you think employees or prospective employees care about that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially in today's world of technology, it's easy to find information. It's easy to look on various websites like a Glassdoor to see what a company's reputation is before you even start considering to work there or partner with them from a work perspective or a client perspective. I think that it's more invaluable than ever. There's so much information out there that people can discover. And the more a firm and organization can get ahead of it and put together a great EVP and market it out to let everyone know how unique they are and how special they are, makes all the difference in the world.
Yep. I'd say a trap that I've seen some really good firms fall into is they equate their EVP with just their value proposition when they're pitching clients. And while I think there's elements of the value proposition that's leading to new clients hiring your firm, it's not necessarily the areas in which employees or prospective talent is really going to latch onto. So I think the best EVPs weave in both the client facing value proposition, what makes this firm so different and better than everyone else, but then going into the areas that you said. So you don't need to fully recreate the wheel, but I think it's tweaking some of the messaging depending upon the audience that you're engaging with.
Absolutely. And I think it's firms realizing that both are so absolutely important. The firm can't continue to go forward and grow without the people and the team. Yet I think the employer value proposition tends to take a back seat as everyone's continuing to push forward to get more assets under management, continuing to grow the firm. And yet I think the EVP is such a crucial piece so that they can get the team in place to continue to bring on those additional clients, the additional assets, and continuing to, deliver just the best client service they can.
No doubt about it. So let me ask you a question here. Why do you think it's so essential to attract top talent? It seems like a softball question, or it's like, thank you, Captain Obvious, but we'd love to hear your take on why you think it's essential for firms of any kind to attract top tier individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Lewis. Going back to my comment about Glassdoor, they also do a lot of surveys. And I recently read 70% of job seekers would consider a company's reputation before even applying for a job. 70%. Like, that's a substantial number of job seekers. And let's face it, people talk, people watch, people investigate, people notice. And the top talent that your firm wants, they want to work for the best companies. They want to work for the best and the brightest. And it's so important for firms to take a moment, pause, and create that great value proposition. I've got a story to share with you, Lewis. During my career, I've watched a number of people join new firms, make career choices, shifts, and ultimately a thought comes to mind of a former coworker of mine that called me one day and was so excited about this amazing opportunity that was presented to them. And it was like the premier firm and exactly in their wheelhouse. And over a number of months, they were having these conversations with this firm. And ultimately, during those months, they watched a number of individuals exit the firm. And it made them pause and wonder what could potentially be going on within that organization or that firm that would cause a significant number of people to leave. And it caused so much pause that they quit having the conversations and they didn't pursue that opportunity. And part of the reason ultimately I found out that the individuals were leaving was due to work culture and environment. And some individuals that they had hired in had really tainted the organization. And unfortunately, it wasn't the same place it was maybe 6 months or a year ago. So ultimately, making sure that a firm identifies all of those different areas and works hard to keep their EVP in place once they put it in place is really crucial to continuing to find talent and hire talent, but also continue to retain them.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think something else I take from this is like the key word in the question was, how do you attract top talent? So I think every firm knows why it's important to hire good people. Ultimately, especially in wealth management, we're not creating a proprietary manufacturing process. At the end of the day, it's a people business. It's professional services. It's people serving people. And if you don't have the best possible folks in the right roles for them, the businesses begin to flounder. But I think the key is attracting the top talent. So firms can engage an organization like ours to help them attract talent. But I think talent attraction and recruiting is a 24/7 job for anyone within the organization. And if you don't have the reputation in check, if you don't have the EVP buttoned up, even if you stumble upon the perfect person, it's going to be really hard to land the plane because top talent is in demand. And if you're not able to deliver the story in a compelling way, similar to how an advisor would deliver the story to a client, they have ample options of where to go on top of potentially staying at the firm that they're at, which is much easier and there's less friction to do that.
Absolutely.
All right. So, next point, what would you say are some of the key elements of building a strong EVP, or we'll call it a world class employee value proposition?
Well, I think relative to building a world class EVP, the biggest thing that comes to mind, Lewis, is making sure that you hit each and every area. It's not good enough to have maybe the best compensation program. It's not good enough to have the best work life balance of any of your competitor or peer firms out there. It's a matter of striking a balance of being strong and honestly, all of them, because ultimately you fall off in one area and it will impact your ability to attract talent. It will impact your ability to retain talent. Again, another story for you, Lewis. This is more personal to me over my career, and I've worked for some amazing firms. There were two firms that I worked for during my 30 plus years where I truly loved my job, loved what I did, loved the people on my team, the people that surrounded me, loved the culture, everything about the firms. In both scenarios, two individuals, one at one firm, one in another firm, were brought in, and they were individuals that I needed to work with that entirely changed the culture of our team, the dynamics. People were closing their doors during the day. They wanted to kind of hide. And ultimately, it impacted me extremely negatively and ultimately caused me in both situations to be open to recruiter calls when they called in. I was a passive individual, but I was willing to take the call because of how things had changed in my current firm, my current culture. With that said, I ended up leaving both firms, even though I loved them both dearly. One note, the first firm, ultimately, I went into the chief human resources officer after I gave notice and had a very candid conversation with her and shared with her that I wasn't the only one that was feeling the way I did. And she had a very talented group of individuals within this firm, and she was at risk to lose them. And ultimately, this individual that caused me to take that recruiter call got let go within the week of me departing.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah, I think another part of this is there's 8 different components of an EVP. So I agree that you need all of them in check. You can't just be amazing in 2 of the areas. Like we pay a lot of money, but it's not a good place to work. It's probably more of a balanced approach. But I think it's also thinking about what's going to make your firm truly different from other firms that are in the market, especially thinking of RIAs. A lot of RIAs say similar things when they're approaching a potential client or approaching an employee. We have a great culture. We have great technology. We hire great people. We all care about each other. All of that sounds great. Who wouldn't want that? But it's really hard to demonstrate that before someone is actually an employee. So if there's tangible examples of what makes your firm so great or what makes your culture what it is, those are probably the things to share because people respond to stories and tangible examples and ultimately seeing themselves in your firm. That's the best way to do it. But something I'm thinking about too is like there's some incredible firms that we've had the privilege of working with who from an advisor side or as an M&A acquirer, they're excellent. They roll out the red carpet, they make it easy to do business. They really think about the advisor facing value proposition, but they disregard the employee side. And like I said earlier, these firms are all built on good employees. So I'm thinking of a firm that will remain nameless, one of the top firms in the industry. They started to lose a lot of their key individuals that were the called the all-star subject matter experts, whether it was in tax or the family office group or on the investment side. And while you lose one person, you can chalk it up to, oh, they got a good offer or their life changed or they're not the right fit. But when advisors started to see that some of these key individuals began to leave, it made them take notice and it made the advisors much more vulnerable to that dreaded recruiter call. I think with this firm in particular, what had changed was they had taken on a private equity sponsor and it was a great idea. It was going to do wonders for the business. But once they started to focus more on how do we grow at all costs? How do we bring in more assets? How do we acquire more businesses? The special part of the culture began to drift. And it's a natural thing as firms get bigger. It is really hard to keep that culture, to keep that family like feel. But in this case, that was the reason these talented individuals stayed. So I think it's a good example of great firm, great value prop for clients, great value prop to attract M&A targets, to attract advisors with large businesses. But the foundation of the firm began to crumble because it felt different now to work at the firm. Let me ask you another question, Jamie. What are your thoughts on aligning your EVP with your company's vision and strategy? Do you have examples of folks that have done it well? And just would love to hear your thoughts on the topic.
Absolutely. I'm going to keep the financial services out of the space so that we don't talk about, potential individuals that we work with and companies that we work with. So I'm going to veer to a different space of companies that I think of, and I know many of us think of, that are just the gold standard and that everyone is so in awe of what they've done, not only from a business perspective, but from an employee perspective. So Louis, like, what do you think of when you hear the names of Hilton Hotels and Walt Disney World?
Very expensive in the case of Walt Disney World. But no, I think of immaculate service. I think of amazing companies with terrific reputations and brands. I think about world-class hospitality.
Absolutely. And caring, right? That probably comes to mind for me of just the caring nature of both of those organizations. And because of all of the things you mentioned, and my thoughts also resonate the same, Lois, is people are drawn to them. we're drawn to them as customers. I've been to Walt Disney World, I don't know how many times I can count based on my daughter's competition would go down to compete at the ESPN Center every year since she was 9 years old, and she's now in college. So we can add up the money I've spent down at Walt Disney. But also when we travel, ultimately there are certain brands that you just feel very comfortable with. You don't have to second guess and think a lot about am I going to give them my money, my service? So circle back to the firms that we have the great opportunity to work with. I want to share some facts. I love facts. I'm a numbers person. 94% of executives and 80% of employees believe a distinct EVP is important for business success. Yet, 60% of organizations are struggling to define or communicate their EVP effectively. You wonder why that is. Ultimately, not having the resources to create and the knowledge to create what that EVP is it not taking the time? Our client base is so busy continuing to grow their business, continuing to service their clients. Is it taking the time to really figure out what that looks like? Is it not utilizing the right avenues to communicate it? Maybe they've developed and embraced this amazing EVP, yet they haven't figured out, how do we share it? How do we communicate it out to the world? It really has to do with the people side of it, right? It has to do with attracting and retaining talent. But ultimately, it's so much more than that. It impacts the firm's brand, it impacts their identity out in the marketplace, it impacts sales ultimately.
I think that's right. I'm just thinking about a recent conversation I had with the firm. I was going through just learning about their business and how potentially we can help them take their business to the next level. And what really stuck with me was they went through all these great services. I didn't remember any of that stuff when we hung up. I took notes, so it's not lost, but it didn't stick in my mind. What stuck in my mind was they said that what makes them different is we're a company whose mission is to help people live their best possible life. And because of that, we have to help our employees live their best possible life. Look, it could be all talk, I don't know, but I love connecting the way that this firm treats its employees with how they care for clients. I think every company can benefit from that. Most good companies have a vision, they have a mission statement, they have a strategy, but weaving in an EVP as part of both of those is a way to make it your unique fingerprint. And it doesn't sound like everyone else's, but also tying people to what the vision, the strategy, the mission is of a firm is the best possible way to get alignment and make sure everyone is rowing in the same direction.
I love that, Lewis. I think that that firm is looking at their clients and their employees in the same bucket, it sounds like. Ultimately, it's just doing the best for everyone that surrounds them, whether that's people within their team helping service their clients or it's their amazing clients that they get the chance to work with.
No doubt about it. And many advisors we've worked with over the years who started working for Merrill or UBS or whatever the firm was, that firm was an awesome place to work. It was fun. It was engaging. They felt like they were in control of their careers, of how to do best by clients. But when we see advisors, and the same can be true for any type of employee, consider change, sometimes it's because they're going for greener pastures or because they really want to be independent. But for the most part, it starts with some level of dissatisfaction. And a lot of times it's with feeling like they're disempowered or they're not engaged or they don't have a voice. And then you compare it to, say, a company like Raymond James, where they legitimately view the financial advisor as their client instead of just focusing on the shareholders. It makes a world of difference. And there's a lot of reasons firms like Raymond James have done an incredible job recruiting and retaining advisor talent better than most firms. But I think it really starts with the ethos that we're privileged to get to support advisors. And if we don't treat them like they're our clients and we instead try to leapfrog them and all we care about is the end investor or our shareholders or our board of directors, it really begins to have a trickle down effect to everyone within the firm. So just a random tangent that I thought of related to this topic. Let's keep the train moving here. So how would you recommend a firm communicate and delivers their EVP in the most effective manner?
Yeah, I think in today's day and age, firms really need to embrace technology, and it's going to continue to blow up and probably amaze me as I continue to move forward in my career of how technology has just changed so dramatically since the days that I walked off of campus many years ago. But social media, it really is the place to be able to really tell your story and tell it routinely, right? And it's not just coming out of the top individuals within the firm, it's providing tools to help everyone within the firm, the organization, share how special they are and what makes them different. It kind of reminds me of advertising, right? If you think of, certain companies or firms that just do an amazing job of advertising and it makes you want to go buy their product, this is the same thing. Ultimately, you need to have that constant drip of letting people know how special you are, why you're special, why people want to be part of your mission. And, to give some examples, everyone's heard of these places. It's just taking the time to potentially develop the content and getting it out there. But do you have a LinkedIn company page? Do you have someone that's looking to learn more about you? Do you have a place specifically within LinkedIn to tell your story? Do you utilize Instagram? Do you have an Instagram page? Depending on the size of firm, an organization, do you have an Instagram recruiting careers page? There's many, many firms and organizations out there that have a page specifically dedicated to the careers and more the people side of the business. Glassdoor, you have someone manning Glassdoor to get a sense for the feedback and what people are saying, but also posting positive information out there. So when you do have a potentially passive candidate considering interviewing and joining your firm, if they go out there, what are they going to read? What are they going to see? 71% of candidates, again, back to the facts, 71% of candidates are likely to research a company's social media channels before applying to a job or taking a call from a recruiter about your specific firm. And it just emphasizes the need that an EVP really resonates, and it resonates with many.
Yeah, I think that's right. And tracing it back to an EVP sounds great. I'm sure many people are listening are like, we don't need that. We get all the quality people we want. But I would also think of an EVP as a great way to position your firm to clients. Ultimately, people want to work with people that they see themselves in, that they think are like-minded. So the more that you can highlight the amazing parts of your company culture and these great and diverse and engaging folks that you have at the firm, it just makes you stand out more because every firm talks about we do financial planning, we're experts on the markets, we care about you, we help you save for retirement. It's going to be the little things that you probably don't even think matter that could get you a meeting with your ideal client versus someone else. So I look at everything as being interconnected, just like having a really good value proposition for an end client weaves into the EVP. I think the EVP can feed the growth engine of a business because end clients are going to think of you differently.
I totally agree there.
An extra little incentive here. What about the ROI or return on investment? So if I'm running a firm or I'm running a team and I decide this is a great idea, I'm going to really invest in my EVP and take the time to build it out to make sure the 8 components are all in check. What is it that they can expect in return?
Ultimately, all of these efforts and investments that a firm or an organization would take specific to building out a really effective EVP and making sure that they're shouting at the top of their lungs out to everyone who they are, what they are, why someone would want to join them, increases sales. It morphs from the people side of it also over to the client side of it without a doubt. But from an ROI perspective, I think a lot of it you have to think through, the two different tranches of attracting talent and losing talent. And when you lose talent, then you have to replace talent. And companies with a strong EVP, they experience 30% lower turnover rates and also 50% better talent acquisition rates, which is substantial. And we all know recruiting talent takes time away from individuals within the organization doing what they are set to do, is servicing their clients and generating revenue for their firm. Recruiting's a distraction. Ultimately, the time it takes away from doing their day job could be exhausting depending on how long it takes to find that replacement. And an effective EVP helps with that. It helps find the right talent, get the right talent excited about the opportunity. And ultimately, everyone within the organization, it's kind of like that old adage of, you got to walk the talk. There's one thing about putting an effective EVP plan together, put it on paper, communicate it out to everybody. But then if you're not walking the talk, ultimately it's going to explode. So the costs that are a savings cost of keeping the talent in place, continuing to let them grow within the firm, taking on new challenges, new opportunities, training and development. All of those things ultimately saves the firm money.
Yeah, I completely agree. Look, we're happy to help anyone who's in need of talent, but we're not cheap to hire. I think we're worth it. But it's also about not even the monetary side of it, like you alluded to, Jamie, but it's the fact that you're taking key executives out of work to interview. You have to spend a ton of time training people. And just like in any business, it's significantly cheaper to retain a customer, or in this case, retain an employee, than it is to acquire a new one. So making the effort to develop an EVP is once again just gonna pay off in spades. I want to take a minute to make this concept of an employer value proposition more tangible. So in the beginning, we talked about the 8 different components of an EVP, from brand, compensation, benefits, job stability, et cetera. Maybe let's just take a minute and let's talk through what would a compelling EVP sound like. And we don't have to use a real one. Let's just wing it here. So let's go one by one. We'll start with brand. So brand, reputation, purpose, and mission. What would be, in your view, an example of this component of an EVP that would sound compelling?
A firm that ultimately everyone's on the same train, right? Ultimately, everyone's in the same direction of moving forward. Everyone understands the goals. Everyone's together working collaboratively to help prop everyone up. I'm always telling my kids since the day they were young and could understand is surround yourself with people that have the skill set that you don't. Don't be intimidated by individuals that might be smarter, faster, brighter. There will always be people like that out there. But be comfortable within a team where you've got individuals that you need to rely on and a brand out there that promotes the teamwork environment and promotes that, the top individual, the founder, the lead partner, the CEO is just as important within the organization as that junior advisor that's just come on that might be the next gen advisor who hopefully is positioned to continue to keep the firm into existence as the more senior advisors step aside to let them move on. And so I think a firm with a brand that really incorporates that whole team concept of we're one unit moving forward in one direction really resonates with individuals.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll go on compensation. So obviously, if people are in the workforce because they're trying to make a living and support their family, so no surprise that compensation is one of the 8 levers of the EVP. So I think it goes without saying that benchmarking compensation versus the competition, whether it's using the custodians benchmarking surveys, which are excellent, or speaking to friends or peers, speaking to folks like us, it's just understanding how your compensation for your current team, but also if you're going out to hire, how can we structure compensation in a way that's at market or above market to attract the right people? So when I think of compensation, it could be base salary, which is fairly self-explanatory. It could be a payout if it's more of a revenue producing advisor. It could be a bonus, but I think bonuses are oftentimes swept under the rug, or it's just, hey, you get X percentage of your compensation, or at the end of the year, we'll meet and we'll grant you a bonus. I think being really transparent about what are the quantitative measures to get a certain bonus, it makes you stand out because people then have predictability and they know exactly what they have to do. But I think also tied to compensation, which is especially relevant for independent firms, is equity. So firms that have a culture of sharing equity, it's not just one individual that owns everything, or it's the founder and the private equity sponsor, but it's a culture where either every advisor or every employee within the firm is an equity owner or has the opportunity to be an equity owner is a differentiator. It helps firms row in the same direction. And I think it signals to potential talent that we want you to share in our success and everyone's going to be invested in a similar way to make this the best possible and most valuable company. So compensation, it's much more than just who's going to pay the most. It's being thoughtful about the different components and getting really smart on how your competitors that you respect are doing it.
I can't agree with you more. When you went to compensation, the 2 things that came to mind are transparency. I think that's one area that a lot of firms and companies struggle with. And everyone is seeking that clarification of how do I add value yet get rewarded for my efforts. But then to that equity piece, I think the equity piece is invaluable. And if there are firms that are capable of giving pieces, it doesn't have to necessarily be significant for those lower levels, but just making them feel part of the team and it's feeling valued, that their efforts are really making a difference within the firm.
Yep. How about benefits? I think it's table stakes that a firm provides medical insurance or a contribution for medical. But what are the other benefits? Let's even say like some unique benefits or fringe benefits that folks can potentially highlight or add to the repertoire.
Yeah, benefits, gosh, it can incorporate so many different things. And I think it's going to continue to evolve as we continue to move forward just as individuals and as we continue to look at things differently. But it's as creative as a firm wants to get on what type of benefits they want to offer from a standpoint of PTO and holidays along with maybe there's time given for philanthropy efforts, whether that's individual philanthropy that an individual's interested in, or maybe it's a firm wide effort of, this is going to be the day. And we are going to, as a firm, go out and give back to our community or our communities, depending if they're in a variety of geographies. Security from a standpoint of something, happens from a standpoint of needing disability, whether that's short-term or long-term disability, the family. Ultimately, there are so many firms that are putting in place a variety of different benefits, whether that is infertility treatments or whether that is paternity benefits to allow an individual to be home with their newborn for a short period or a longer period of time, depending on what that benefit looks like, to bond and to give support to their significant other. So there's a lot of different things that I think resonate within the benefits arena, and it's kind of sky's the limit of what a firm wants to do. But I definitely think when you get unique, the potential employees or current employees really do truly appreciate it and appreciate the firm making the investment in them.
Yep, I completely agree. It also is using benefits as a way to strategically get the individuals that you want. So like, I love what you said about fertility benefits or paternity leave benefits or a generous maternity leave policy. That's what folks are looking for if they're in that stage of life. And if you can do something that's different, or maybe it's something that a small firm typically wouldn't provide, but a Fortune 500 company would, I think you can use benefits in a way to attract key individuals that maybe they're going to leave the workforce, but maybe you can get someone who's amazing. But if you give them a certain level of flexibility and offer them something different, oftentimes we found that someone might even be willing to take less as far as compensation if the benefits are really world class. What about work life balance? I think another one that's fairly self explanatory, but would be one or two things that would be part of this component.
The biggest thing that comes top of mind, Lewis, and you mentioned this at the start of our conversation, is just that whole notion of working in office 100%, the hybrid world and the remote world. And ultimately, since coming out of COVID, firms have definitely migrated back to in office or hybrid. And I think that it's going to continue to evolve, but I do think that having that ability to work hybrid or even remote for the right positions is really a benefit for firms to find the right talent. One, it opens up the landscape from a remote perspective. It opens up the landscape of talent that you can tap into, whether you're working with a recruiter like us or you're leveraging your network to find great talent. The remote workforce, ultimately, with all of the technology that we have in certain positions, is very effective. So, from a work life balance, that's probably the area that comes mostly to top of mind. Some of it falls back into the benefits. You could say it's work life balance, benefits, PTO, those types of things. But I think the way people work in this day and age is going to continue to be top of mind for so many people out in the workforce.
Absolutely. We've seen it as one of the first screens that a prospective employee has when they're trying to research companies. Is the position remote or is it hybrid? I think anyone would agree there's certain roles that still are better or more important to be in person, whether it requires a high degree of collaboration or you have to be in front of clients in person a certain amount of time. But there's certain roles where you can find better people for a lower cost, especially if your firm is based in New York City or San Francisco. Why do you need someone who has to be in the office, who you have to pay a New York salary to, when you can find someone potentially better in the Midwest who is never going to move their family, but you can get for 20 or 30% cheaper? So I think, once again, it just makes good business sense. I think another part of work life balance is legitimately, what's the expectation of number of hours someone's going to work? Is it a culture where everyone shows up 9 to 5 and is off on the weekend? Or is it more of a investment banking culture where your life is your job and you have to be on call at all times? It's hard to position that. But I think from an employee retention standpoint, if a firm isn't super transparent about the expectation of how someone's going to work and the hours they're going to work, they lose people to burnout, or because people don't feel like they're being paid enough relative to the amount of work they're putting in. And let's go rapid fire for the rest of them. So, employee recognition and rewards, what comes to mind?
I think everyone likes to be recognized. We're all human. We all like to feel the love, and they don't have to be significant. Along with recognition and rewards, it's also just recognizing an individual. Anniversaries, happy birthdays, things that are significant within someone's world, whether it's professional or on the personal front. But having set recognition rewards that people can applaud their coworkers with, I think is a great thing for a firm to do. When people hit milestones, when people go out and get a new FINRA license, or they get a new designation, or they're past the first part of their CFP, making that aware so that everyone can give everyone their kudos and all of that. It just makes you feel more of a team and honestly, more of a family. And I think it helps keep individuals more engaged within their firm.
Yeah, I agree. And recognition, oftentimes it's not that you have to give someone a bonus or get them a gift card, which that could be part of it. It's more just leadership going out of their way to call out special achievements. I know within our firm, we have a Slack channel where anytime someone successfully places an advisor or team, it's announced and everyone says like, good job, congratulations. And it's like, it doesn't cost us anything to do that, but it's a really cool part of our culture. And I know if I'm the one who makes the announcement, I feel really good and proud for doing that. So I would think it's just thinking about whatever is the main value drivers of your business, whether it's, oh, Joe just landed a $10 million client, or we just converted this client from all commissions to advisory, or Peggy just came up with this amazing new marketing initiative. People want to be recognized, and they'll leave companies where they feel like they're marginalized or not valued, because compensation is important, but compensation is expected. Bonuses are oftentimes expected. It's the small things around the edges that will make people have a better experience at your company.
Absolutely.
How about career development? I guess I'll take this one. There's so many folks within wealth management firms who start off as a administrative assistant or someone in operations or compliance, but maybe they have a spark where they realize that the role of a financial advisor or of a chief investment officer or director of research is way more engaging than their current job. So the smart firms recognize that good people are hard to come by, and they either have career tracks like, hey, every advisor who comes into our firm, they start off here, they'll learn the business in 2 or 3 different ways, and then they'll be ready to become an advisor. I think just having a very clear path is good business, because you can develop people for a fraction of the cost of hiring a really senior person. You're able to train them in your own way within your own culture. And ultimately, you don't want, even if someone's the best administrative assistant in the world and you'd hate for them to not be in that role, isn't it better to keep them within the fold and have them morph into a different role than to lose them to a company that's going to give them the shot to really advance? And I think the same can go for professional accreditations, firms that are really active in supporting their employees' initiatives to get a CFP, get a CFA, get some sort of advanced designation, or do some sort of leadership development course, but actually putting their money where their mouth is and paying for it and giving time off to do it, I think goes a long way to cultivating the best possible talent within a firm. And let's just do the last two. How about work culture and environment? How does that differ from work-life balance or some of the other factors we mentioned?
I think it goes back, Lewis, to that whole concept of how people show up every day from a standpoint of Are you excited to be there? Are you excited to be part of the team? Are you lifting each other up and being in an environment where everyone's on the same page of wanting to continue to move the ship forward and doing so with regards to supporting everyone around you? No one wants to show up to a firm or to a job where ultimately you've got coworkers that are constantly complaining. You've got leaders that are constantly on you from a standpoint of all the different things you're not doing right and not focusing on the things you are doing well. And so, approach to how we treat people as we navigate the wins, but also navigate potential failures and learning from failures is a big deal. And ultimately, in my opinion, on the failing front of it, we all learned through what we all call failing or making a mistake. And it goes back to that book that you chose that we read within our firm, Lewis, of are you a fixed-minded person or you're a growth-minded person? Being a work culture environment of growth-mindedness, of we're all at times nervous about taking on a new challenge. We're all sometimes scared to make a mistake, but embracing that mentality of as we make errors, we continue to grow stronger, we continue to grow smarter, and we're going to continue to have more and more success.
Yep. And then how about job stability and security? Is this simple as like there's not constant layoffs or it's a up and out type culture? What are some of the other elements to incorporate into an EVP?
I think some of that has to do with communication and transparency and leaders that are overseeing individuals and teams being connected to them, and kind of goes back to that employee recognition and rewards, but it's more verbal of recognizing the wins within the simple day-to-day and making someone feel like they're valued and that they are making a difference. I think that goes a long way with regards to someone feeling that they've got a good place to be and they've got a seat at the table. And on the job stability standpoint, 100%, if you see a number of people leaving, whether that's voluntary or whether that's layoffs, that makes people nervous. So I think the biggest thing for my standpoint or my vantage point is being transparent. I've come across a number of firm and companies over my career that when things happen, they try and spin it. They try and make it seem different than it is. And I think the best approach, and I live this day to day, is honesty is the best thing. And being transparent goes a long way with the existing people that are still part of your firm.
Absolutely. I love this. I learned a lot just talking with you, Jamie. One of my big takeaways from this is an EVP, of course, it impacts talent, but it can also be a conduit for growth and improving your bottom line. So even if your firm isn't looking to aggressively add new talent, having the EVP in check will only help the business in the future. And I think taking time to enhance an EVP, building out the strategy, making sure all the components are sound is a great activity for any leadership team. We'll invite anyone who's listening, if you have questions about your EVP or want to workshop what it sounds like, or you're struggling with components of it, feel free to reach out. Go to our website and put an inquiry. We'll include Jamie and my email on the episode page. And if you're curious about our exciting new executive search line of business, the website to check out the services is diamond-consultants.com/DCES. And we'd love to speak with anyone about their talent needs and also just look to provide some helpful value based upon our years of experience in doing this. So Jamie, thanks again for joining us. And we'll make sure we come up with other topics around this that will make wealth management firms even better.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Lewis.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.